Hi there, this is Beth from the Sterling Public Library, and I'm here to talk to you about a couple more books from our young adult section. The first one I want to talk about is this one. It's called List of 10 by Halli. It's brand new, just came out last week, and I will read you the first line. Actually, I'm reading you the first paragraph. 10, 3 letters, 1 puny syllable. The number didn't sound impressive, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. You could say I was obsessed with it. So this book is about Troy, who's a junior in high school, and he has Tourette syndrome and OCD. I don't really know that much about Tourette, and if you don't, Google it because it's interesting, but it really sounds like an absolutely horrible neurological disorder, and I can't even imagine what it's like to live with something like that. A side note, the author is actually has Tourette, and so I'm guessing that the depiction is pretty accurate in this book. Anyway, so Troy is miserable. He's because of his disorders. And so he makes a list of 10 things that he wants to do. And the first 9 are all things that because of his Tourette and his OCD, he's never been able to do because he just hasn't had the opportunity or the ability. And then the last thing is to kill himself. And so he sets about deciding to accomplish this list. And as he goes through it, though, he starts his life seems like it's getting better. Not really, but a little bit better. Anyway, he starts to get the idea that maybe his life is worth living. This is not a happily ever after book, but it is hopeful. I mean, it's a hard book to read because it's a really, like I said, it sounds like a really horrible thing to live with. I like Troy as a character. He's real. He's super interesting. The plot is super interesting. The writing was a little bit stilted, but that was okay. I could deal with that because the plot and the characters were so interesting. Like I said, it's not happily ever after, but it is hopeful. Living with a lifelong chronic disorder is basically a lifelong chore, and it's something he will have to deal with his whole life. But there are good things about life too. Anyway, I thought it was really interesting. It's a really good book to read and really interesting. And I'd suggest it to pretty much anybody. The other book I want to talk about is the hidden gem. This one, and it's called Book of 1,000 Days by Shannon, Hale. And this is in the fantasy genre. It is a fairy tale retelling. I will read you the first line. Day 1. My lady and I are being shut up in a tower for 7 years. So, as I said before, this is a fairy tale retelling, and the author's note says it's a retelling of the fairy tale called Maid Maleen, which I've never heard of. I had to Google it. But when I first read this years ago when it first came out, and then I reread it again a couple days ago, it's super good. It kind of reminds me of more of a mashup of Rapunzel and the Goose Girl. But whatever, I guess a lot of fairy tales have commonalities. Anyway, this book it's about a princess who doesn't want to marry the evil man her father is forcing her to marry. And so her father takes her and her maid and locks them in a tower for 7 years to soften her up, make her change her mind. But this book is actually told from the point of view of the maid. And so Dashti is the maid, and she keeps this book is basically like her diary. So she writes, some things that happen throughout basically 1,000 days. I love Dashti as a character. She's very honest in this book about her own shortcomings, but she's smart, she's humble, she's courageous. She's just a really great character, and you really like her and root for her the whole time. The princess, on the other hand, she's not horrible, but she's not very smart, and she's had some really, really bad experiences in her life, and so she does have a lot of issues that Dashti has to deal with while she's taking care of her. But anyway, if you like fairy tales or fairy tale retellings or anything like that, this is a super good book. Like I said, I read it several years ago, reread it a couple days ago, and loved it both times. So check this one out. All right, that's all I have for today. I will see you next time.